our other two previous. Okay, I think now we're live, and I have to say we're doing a follow-up to other two really previously successful webinars on YouTube advertising with Cory, Joe Martinez, and also Bryant. Bryant had to kind of drop out at the last minute. He had something going on. However, I think we're still going to have a pretty good show here. The format's going to be a little bit different than usual in the aspect that instead of just presenting, we're just going to pretty much have an open panel for discussion for the next hour or so. So for those of you that attend, once you start attending, just feel free, just ask. Like, you have the chat right there. Anything goes, like whatever you know, whatever question you have or curiosity related to YouTube advertising, don't hesitate. Like, that's what we're here for. So it's a different format than we're used to, but I think it'll be nice. So how are you guys doing, Cory and Joe?
Doing well. Excited to be here. Yeah, as always.
Yeah, we planned on this, you know. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, shit.
We're pumped.
What was I thinking? Yeah, I might have a clap somewhere for Semrush. Did you guys get the blanket and everything?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, my kids got it. They stole it from me, so
yeah,
it's in the house somewhere.
Yeah.
What's the weather like? Like, it's pretty cold in the States now, right?
Super cold. Snowing.
Oh, you got it? No. Oh yeah, ours is just freezing in the 30s, but it's going to be back to high 40s soon. Okay. But it's normal for us. It's Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's cold. I mean, compared over here, it's like 65 and rain today for the first time. But anyway, we're not here to talk about the weather, though.
No.
I mean, if you're really curious about that, go on YouTube, search for a storm in Tel Aviv. You'll hear about that. So like I said, I see more people joining, which is cool. If you guys have any questions, ask them in the chat. I will formally introduce everybody. I mean, first of all, we have Joe Martinez here. He is Director of Client Strategy for Clicks Marketing. Mm-hmm. Joe's a regular contributor. Land, Marketing Land, and WordStream. Yes. Oh, yeah, sorry. And he has hosted webinars for Semrush, Unbounce, Quora, and Microsoft Ads. He regularly speaks at conferences such as SMX, HeroCon, PubCon, and more. And finally, he was named the top 25 influential PPC expert by PPC Hero for 2017, 18, and 19. So yeah, Joe's the real deal here. He's an expert in the field. Actually, like the other day, like I'm doing some searches. Like I was researching something related to conversion tracking, and reading an article. And then I get to the bottom, and it's like, oh, Joe, okay. Yeah.
I did that?
Like, I mean, I see your name out there. What?
Don't remember writing it, but cool.
No, it was something related to Tag Manager, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've definitely done that. So okay. That makes sense. No, it's good to be here. Definitely with Cory and, of course, Brian on the previous ones, too. This is what we love to talk about. I wish we could do these all the time, and maybe we will.
Yes. I mean, I see no reason why not. You know what I mean? I think we're all getting a lot of value from it. I mean, I am getting a lot of value from it. Personally, I'm learning a lot from everybody. We have, Cory is also a brilliant expert at this. He's founder at Variable Media, primarily focused on paid media across all digital platforms. In addition to that, speaks internationally on paid media. So he's especially focused on YouTube and Instagram, which is cool. He's also into organic social media, as well as custom analytics for clients built with Power BI. That's something, by the way, that I think we don't speak enough about. Analytics is important. Understanding how to track is important. If you're not able to do that, you're not seeing all the data you need to in order to effectively optimize your campaigns, whatever they might be, for not just understanding what's working, but also, feeding it into the, into the bidding algorithms of the platforms themselves. It's good to make sure that they know everything that's happening. Cory, by the way, was most recently presented at the Utah DMC 2019. So we're very happy to have Cory here. And I myself, my name is Joel Bondorowsky. I'm a founder of PPC Designs and boutique advertising agency in Tel Aviv. I also am very heavily involved with Semrush. I host these webinars regularly, and I taught their PPC Academy course about a year ago. It's definitely worth checking out. It's free if you want to get some lessons on PPC. So okay, let's begin. We have more people joining us, which is cool. Let me start with
Cory's ready.
Yeah, Cory, are you ready?
I'm ready, guys.
And
I'm ready.
Licking his chops over there.
Let's get going.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, first off, let's start with targeting. What do you prefer as targeting for YouTube ads? Like, let's say you were to start like a new YouTube ad campaign. Like, what is the way you would approach that? What type of, would you use in market audiences? Would you use, affinity audiences? I mean, obviously remarketing, that's more simple to understand, but how do you kick something off?
I'll jump at that one first. I usually like to, set my campaigns up in a funnel structure. So you could either have like top and low, or maybe like top, mid, and low in terms of targeting. And at the top, I'm really looking at topic and market, keeping things very broad. In that mid area, I'm looking for those users who engaged. So anybody that went and watched a YouTube video on my YouTube channel, maybe they became a subscriber, like the video, commented, like my engagers are really going to sit in my mid funnel. Maybe I create a few custom placements where I'm targeting this specific video because it makes sense for my advertiser. But those are kind of my mid funnel. And then in the low, I'll usually have retargeting. Anybody that added to cart, anybody that filled out a form, anybody that downloaded a white paper, anybody that is engaged to the highest level that I can find within my clients, different attributes, I guess you could say, different ways to engage at a higher level other than just clicking or becoming or watching a video on YouTube. Maybe a completion of a video that's maybe longer than 2.5 minutes. That might be in my low. So I try to separate things out because I definitely want to compare the analytics of like the CPM and the CPCs to start. And what you should find is that in your top and your mid, those CPMs and CPCs should be a lot better than maybe your low, because in your low, you might get charged a higher amount for a smaller audience, but they are most likely to possibly convert for you. So that's how I would, exactly. So that's how I would kind of set up my targeting without having any additional information into e-commerce, retail, B2B, etc.
Okay, so what about very, very low? Like, I mean, besides your targeting, there's something. Would you ever like target individual placements?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would, but necessarily the placement, if you're doing just placements only without any additional audience targets on it, the placement alone might not necessarily be bottom of the funnel. I would, from a funnel structure, which I do the same thing that what Cory does. I'm looking at from an audience perspective of setting up the funnel, and that's what I do. So typically I would want to capture the bottom first, just to keep those users engaged. So definitely my remarketing audiences. And then even when I'm going up to mid or top of funnel, I am creating audience exclusions just to make sure I'm keeping my remarketing audiences or my engagement audiences excluded from my pure top of funnel ones. I want to separate the net new users viewing my video ads compared to people who already know. Because if you're doing an in-stream ad and you're adding your call to action extensions, that message I want to put and that call to action I want to put from my top to mid to bottom funnel, it's going to differ for those users, even if the video is the same for whatever reason. So that's why I'm going to separate that out. And then so some of the good top to middle funnel type audiences I like to do are custom intent audiences, which those are going to be merged with custom affinity very, very, very soon. They announced it almost a year ago, but it's actually coming into fruition now. So, taking keyword lists, at least 40 or 50, and then making custom intent audiences, which are pretty much your version of in-market audiences if you don't like the default ones on there. But with YouTube, it's based off of search queries on google.com. Broad match related, so it's not exact like you think. But again, this is YouTube. We're okay with the wider reach. So, I mean, look at your converting search queries, you're converting keywords, build a list of competitor keywords, and start creating your different custom intent audiences and test those out. Because we've actually seen sometimes those convert at a higher level than some of our lower ones.
So actually, I have some questions related to this. Actually, let's just open some stuff up. One guy, there's one person here. He's in e-commerce. He's selling a particular product. He's asking, would it be a good idea to target individual placement if it was, let's say, a video showing reviews for that type of product?
Absolutely. I think, getting down to the placement level is extremely important. But, as Joe knows, very time consuming, right? Yeah. And so if you can get to the exact placement and you do your research and you go through everything and you find those specific placements, I think that's one of the best ways to target. But if you don't have that yet and you're kind of unsure, a great way to do it is to, go custom intent, like Joe mentioned, drop your keywords in there, potentially do a keyword campaign, and then go and analyze the placements and their performance to say, oh, I might not have known that this placement, people close to complete my video at this high of a percentage, or they're actually converting more on this placement than what I thought. There's a lot of consumer research tied into the campaigns that you run for YouTube. But to your original question, yes, definitely. If you know the placements, if you think that it'll work, those are the places to be, because you kind of want to treat YouTube as like your own television network where you pick the channels, and you want to have this cohort of really good placements that you can go after, and how they perform. But I do want to tell you that if you pick a small amount of placements, your CPMs are usually going to be higher. And it's just because you have a smaller pool of inventory, and usually you get charged a higher rate for that. And we've seen that when it comes to search as well.
Yeah, noticed that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you have to be careful with placement targeting too. Look within your campaign settings, because by default for in-stream ads, Google's going to check the box of also show my video ad on related placements on the display network. So if you're picking a specific YouTube channel and that YouTube channel has a corresponding app or corresponding website, Google has the right to show your video ad on the display network too, even if you've only picked selected video placements on YouTube or YouTube video. So, and then you have to be really, really careful if you have display placements in there, because we don't have the display planner anymore. So we can't actually see which websites have video ad space. So you could say like, oh, this website could be great. And I could put my video ad on there. It's like, oh, no, they're in the display planner, but it doesn't necessarily mean they have video ad space. So if you select some of those placements that don't have video ad space, and you don't have any other safety net of a custom intent audience or a topic or other keywords or anything, Google can ignore that placement setting and just go by whatever default other targeting options that you have. So that's why, like, if you've opened up your placement reports and you're like, wait, I targeted these specific YouTube channels or these specific placements, but it has 0 impressions, but all of a sudden my topics are getting all the impressions of it, it's because that specific placement might not be eligible. Either you're not bidding high enough, or they don't have video ad space at all. So just because you see something and you select it, which is kind of shady on Google's part, it doesn't mean your video is actually going to be there. So you need to really monitor placement targeting the moment you launch an ad group.
Okay, that's right. Well, personally, what I find is that sometimes they just don't want to run. So I just have to bid really, really, really aggressively. But what about in a campaign that's capped by budget, so it doesn't go crazy? And sometimes if I start getting traction, then I could then lower the bids. Yeah,
I mean, and I do exactly what Cory said. If you don't see specific placements that you want, run your other specific, like custom intent or custom affinity audiences for now. Look at your placement reports, and if you see ones that have good engagement or just flat out conversions, then those specific placements have video ad space. So then export those out and create a different managed placement ad group or campaign for those, and then exactly where your ads are going to appear.
Okay, so I have a question. Actually, I have a question related to custom intent keyword lists. Like, how do you create them? Like, do you go after competitor domain names, or you go after just like things people search for? And then how do you find those keywords? Do you use the keyword planner maybe?
What do you do, Cory?
My custom intent audiences are really a mix of everything. Like I kind of, throw things at the wall when it comes to custom intent. And so there's keywords, there's websites. I do break out, like a competitor specific list, and it's got competitor keywords, competitor websites, etc. And then I have another list that is more focused on, just a category list, things in my category that's specific. So that's how I break them out and I target them. But I am very diligent in checking that placement report, because when you set such broad parameters from a competitor and from a category standpoint, you usually get some placements that you're just kind of like, I don't know if I necessarily want to run in front of this video, or potentially running in front of music, where they could be just listening to my ad and not seeing it, But again, we have to take Google for what it is. It's the biggest data warehouse possibly on the earth. And so, regardless of what video it's running in front of, they could have the intent signals behind it to make sure that that user is qualified to receive that impression. But again, I treat custom intent, with a very short leash in terms of being able to look at those placements and understand where my videos are running.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Yeah. So what you said, I mean, for me too, it's also sort of been hit and miss. Like I just experiment with many different custom audiences, custom lists. Um, However, like one thing that I've always wondered about is if I'm experimenting with too, like, how do you know if they're overlapping or maybe like competing with each other? And maybe if what you're trying, it's like, in other words, what is the way that you kind of like test these lists and make sure that they're not too similar, or like what's your strategy there?
It's all about the placement report for me. And so, the question that you're asking is really me setting a broad net with that custom intent and then checking the performance and seeing how it aligns to somebody who engaged, somebody who retargeted. It's a lot of comparison, but when I set these custom intents, it's more of just like a feeler for this video, right? Like if I've got a custom intent, it's a competitor custom intent, it should do well. And the view rates, all of a sudden it's 60%, doing so well. And I'm like, why is it at 60%? Boom, I'm to the placement report. Why? What videos are really driving this performance? Because ultimately, I want to build my own network of these different placement channels. And so it's more of a testing environment for me, where I get very cheap CPMs, very cheap cost per views, and I'm able to gather information to make better decisions later, I think, on my mid and my lower funnel.
Yeah, and that's the one time I typically don't, from a custom intent audience standpoint, I don't add those exclusions. Like I don't exclude a custom intent audience from another one, because they could be part of that audience that looking for my competitor and also interested in whatever service I could be promoting. So that's why I don't exclude those, because Cory said I want to look at the engaged user. And then for doing from the funnel strategy, once they are engaged, those earned actions that we've mentioned in previous webinars here, people who liked videos, subscribed to your videos, added you to a playlist or whatever, we can create audiences off of those actions. So once they do those, there we go. I got them in another list. They're excluded from my top of funnel campaigns, and now they're seeing something different. So that's how we kind of weed those users out. But, from a planning perspective, I mentioned doing your converting search queries as one, doing your converting keywords, and I keep those as two separate audiences, because we've seen with keywords and close variant matching, what you're targeting and what the user is actually searching for is two different things. So they perform differently. Competitors, one thing, because when you go and you create these custom intent audiences, you're doing it in the audience manager within Google Ads. So you have, if it's display and a YouTube custom intent, they're two different ones, and they have to be two separate audiences. Yes. So when you're creating it from a display one, they actually give you keyword suggestions on the side. So I actually like to go and tinker with it on the display one first. And then once you go back and create it from search queries from google.com, which is the YouTube one, they don't give you those recommendations. So you can have different ideas when you look at it from a display ad standpoint first, export that one out, and then just copy and paste those keywords in a google.com one, and then use that one for YouTube.
Okay. That's very insightful. I mean, it's like, I think for a lot of people, though, it's like a little bit hit and miss. But actually, you brought something up, and I think that was a good point. Excluding audiences is something you have to be very careful with, because like one person could be many things. For example, almost anybody could be a music lover, right? So if you exclude an audience, you could actually be excluding a lot of very qualified people. It's not like excluding a placement, because a placement is a placement. Placements don't overlap, right? So that was a point that I wanted to bring up, because it's I've seen people make the mistake before. Now, what are the pros and cons, as far as you see it, of using in-stream or discovery ads?
Oh man, this could fill the rest of the session here.
Discovery ads are fairly new, and Joe, please chime in if I butcher this in any way. But when you set up a discovery campaign, you're kind of limited in terms of where that discovery campaign is going to run. It's either going to run within the news area of Google, Gmail, or potentially YouTube. And so you can't necessarily silo out those YouTube impressions. So it makes it really difficult to give that full comparison between Google Discovery and in-stream. But if we're going to make the comparison, I do like the Google Discovery placement, because it is in-stream. You can direct them directly to a video, even though you are going to get impressions inside of Gmail and inside of Google News. So I think it does have that attribute. I think what I like about Discovery is the fact that you're in a lean forward scrolling environment, and it usually indicates that somebody's willing to engage and probably watch something for longer. I don't think you get that with in-stream, where you're running something before somebody's content or in between somebody's content. Like nobody wants to be disturbed, and so that impression is just different. Now, I think the ability you do have within Stream is to be able to run long form content and a variety of different units, whether it's a bumper, whether it's, you know, a non-skippable, you know, skippable for whatever length. And so I think you have more I feel like you have more targeting abilities, you have the ability to learn more about your in-stream campaigns, and you have video, which just gives you a plethora of consumer behavior information. Completion rates, did they become an earned view? How long did they save through the video, by age, by device? Like, there's so much more that I feel like you can learn from in-stream. And so I tend to lean that way. However, testing discovery in the past like 2 months, we're seeing very good CPMs and CPCs, and they are all in platform, which is great because I feel more comfortable with those impressions versus them being out on the web. But that's my take.
Yeah, I mean, with TrueView, the skippable ones, there's a good chance that you might not pay for that view. So that's free impression share. If someone's on a discovery ad, you know, the most common way is the YouTube search results or recommended videos. That's the most common way you're going to see the discovery one. A user has to click on it. So they're pretty much guaranteed, and you will be charged for that view every time. But the intent is typically higher, especially on YouTube results. If your targeting is great, you know, if you have a how-to video and you have that video as an answer to someone's question of like, how do I fix this? And you have the video for it. If you're the top one and they click on it, that user is a very high intent user, and that's where the benefit could happen. You know, Cory mentioned the experience is totally different, and that's true, where in-stream is going to be more disruptive. You know, they wanted to watch their music video, their cat video, whatever, and you're getting in front of them with an ad. Where the discovery one is they chose to watch it. And, you know, they're on the video watch page too, where an in-stream one, it could be a call to action extension, your shopping cards, you can send people to your website. With the discovery one, they're on the video watch page. So then you have to look at updating your video with either other recommended videos from your channel or end screens. Like, it's more from an engagement stuff to keep them engaged on YouTube. So that intent is different.
Okay. That's very, very important to understand. The question, actually, we were talking about GDN and YouTube earlier, about how the targeting is kind of similar. What would you say the differences are between the targeting in YouTube and GDN? I mean, you brought up that one thing earlier, where how you build the audiences separately, but like strategy-wise, maintenance-wise, like what do you say is the big difference?
I'm going to defer to Joe for this one because I think he has a lot more display experience. But from my standpoint, I just feel like you have a lot more that you can use in YouTube just from a video standpoint. Like the engagement metrics there, I think, are great, because if they watch this video, I'm going to show them that video. Even though, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, you can still get those, you know, YouTube metrics to retarget with a display campaign as well, I believe. And so, but you still have ad sequencing, which is very unique in terms of, you know, hey, they watched this video and this video. Wow, that's a high intent user. I want to show them this video because that's my closing video. So I think just because display came first before YouTube, it's got a lot more targeting capabilities that YouTube probably doesn't have. I think Joe brought up a great point earlier, where it's just like, hey, use these tools in display, export them, and then pump them into YouTube, because we've seen this happen over time. If you've been with Google for, you know, over a few years, you've seen how things get rolled out to other platforms like later, but some of those cool tactics usually stay in some of those legacy placements and places.
Well, so I think something you just said for me that just really resonated, and I think is you know, a big takeaway personally, is that, like, okay, and even though the targeting might be similar on the GDN, it's like the interaction with the ad is like, okay, you click or not, you know what I mean? But with YouTube, the creative itself, the process of like absorbing the creative is so much larger. And what that gives you is an additional way to optimize your messaging and your targeting, because you kind of like have someone's attention for so long. It's like going on a long date with someone versus a Tinder swipe.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I mean, like, it looks like Google makes it look like that you get all the exact same targeting options for display and YouTube, and you don't. It goes back to that display planner thing. Even when display planner was visible, you looked at all the websites, whatever type of topic you were searching under, all of them had display ads because they're part of the display network, but then only a random few of those actually had video ad space. Same thing how some of the targeting limitation works. So it, for the most part, it's the same. We already talked the difference about how custom intent is different from display and YouTube. It's much more specific from the YouTube perspective. But there are going to be those subtle differences in the way, how, like I said, how placements work, and even some of the exclusions. So you go to your placement reports when you launch a display campaign, how many times you see just loaded up with all those mobile apps, right? I don't get that from a YouTube perspective. Now, what we do see is we get all the children's channels and stuff, which I have a list of like 1,500 ones that you can exclude. So there's, the pros and cons of each, but it's what Cory says. If you're not monitoring your placement reports anyway, they both can do junk. So you got to keep an eye on that.
And so I get this right.
No, I just wanted to add like one more thing when it comes to like that YouTube display comparison. When you run display, and this again isn't like doesn't have to do with targeting, you only have the option to click. If you run a YouTube campaign, there's so many other options. You have the call to action overlay. You have a card where you can include, multiple different click-throughs. You have in screens. You have the ability to retarget somebody who goes to your YouTube channel. They might not even engage on that ad, but if they go take another action somewhere else, you can retarget them. And I think you have to take a page out of Facebook's book. They created this engagement, reactions, comments, shares, all those you can retarget off of. And so I think when you give a user multiple options, that is where you can possibly find more ways to reach additional users, because we're all different as human beings. We all don't take the same steps. And so giving somebody more options to engage and be able to retarget, that's what I think is, really powerful about YouTube.
Yeah. And we look at it from an engagement standpoint, like we get impressions and clicks and conversion numbers. That's fine. Even if someone clicks on the ad, the value of that versus someone who watched a 20-minute video ad, 100%, I get much more data of who's a better audience one by engagement metrics from YouTube than I do with display.
Because they give you that forum. You have the person's attention for the duration of that video.
And for so cheap, for so cheap too. You might not even pay, for some of that attention, but we can use it for remarketing one later on. And if someone, we look at if someone does watch a 20-minute video and I'm paying 3 cents for that, and how much do you pay for your display clicks? And now I have a much more higher intent audience to go after with next step marketing tactics.
That could teach you a lot. I'm thinking about like other ways that could benefit. Like, let's say you're working on sales copy, experimenting with different messages and videos and watching what engages people the most could maybe like help dictate like the type of copy to write on a sales page, for e-commerce products. Actually, I got someone here asking questions. He looks like he's into e-commerce based on what he's asking. He's asking if you would consider using a review site for like cold traffic, which I assume is for e-commerce or comparisons. And also, is that compliant even?
Yeah. Your video can be an hour long, hour and a half long, 2 hours long. And I think the question is, would you run a 15-minute review ad for an e-com product on cold traffic?
I was asking the previous one. But
I'm sorry. What was the previous question, Joel? I'm sorry.
Like having a landing, I think what it is like a landing page. It's like a top 7 comparison website.
Sure.
To promote one of the products on the top 7.
To promote one of the products on the top 7? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And drive them to that top 7 page?
Yeah, like basically would you use YouTube to drive people to top 7 page to sell a product that's being promoted on that page, or maybe products with affiliate deals?
Yeah. I don't see why not. I mean, if it's an affiliate deal and you're really trying to do affiliate marketing and leveraging YouTube, but I think it really goes back to Joe's point in terms of intent, right? Like if you're going to run custom affinity very broad and run your 15-minute video, I don't know how many conversions you're going to get. But if you run, a search retargeting campaign on YouTube, and you're retargeting the right person that could, find maybe not just that one, but potentially find value in a couple of those deals, I think you're giving yourself your best shot for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I still don't see the question. So if I butcher this response, I apologize. But if it's like an affiliate website and you don't have your analytics on there and your goal is just to drive awareness for it, cool. But if you want to know the stats and be able to drive traffic that you can use for later remarketing or even to track conversions or anything, and you don't have, your analytics or any of your tags on that affiliate website, then you're not going to have that data to do any potential next step. So again, hopefully that answered your question. I could have misinterpreted that.
Here in Israel, a lot of people get into online marketing, and there's actually several companies out there that have review sites where, like, for example, there's a very well-known one here called like Top 10 Best Website Builders. And it's there's a company here that's doing very heavy search traffic. They've got great affiliate deals because they kind of like, because everyone wants to be up top on their list. and they have such good analytics. They're just basically, it's just like a money machine, just selling other people's products, and they're kind of like dominating search results for anything you search for related to website builders. So I think what he's asking about is like that sort of site. Would it be a good idea to use like an affiliate site to try, YouTube, to try to like push those types of products through like a portal, just direct response, like to the point where I don't even think they care about the brand of the review site. The review site's just a way to get them through.
Okay.
I still think so. I mean, like it's going to take some work, right? Because putting up 10 display banners, all different colors, different call to actions, I feel like you could get that done maybe in a day. If you wanted to do that for video, it could take you maybe a week or potentially longer. But I mean, we do have the ability to open up our cell phones, do face to camera, and still develop quality that is engaging enough to keep people past 30 seconds at a high rate to drive that cost per view down. So I definitely think it's possible, but I will tell you that it will take some work and some money and some time to figure out if it's going to be profitable or not. But I definitely think it could work. So
I think I'm thinking about Website Builder again, like that top 10 review site for Website Builder. Like, so let's say, like, maybe this could be a good strategy, because building websites is something that is very YouTubed. People are on YouTube a lot of times to, learn how to do stuff. So like, maybe like, how would you target, let's say, people who are researching how to build a website, how to make a website? They got a business, they want to get it online, they're on YouTube. How do I target those placements?
I would really try to look at what are they called? The content hubs, like the WordPress, the Joomla, these different types of content management systems, CMSs, these content management systems that allow you to develop websites very easily. Shopify is another one. So anybody looking for those with those type of keywords, that's one place that I would focus. But longer type of phrases I think are important. I think people that are trying to get around that WordPress, right? Like how to build a website without WordPress. I think there's other smaller ones. I threw out the bigger ones. There's, I think, Wix and a couple of other words. So I'd be definitely heavily conquesting and finding those people looking for those type of key terms.
Yeah. That's the custom intent audience right there, is just pull all those terms.
So custom intent is the way to go there, I think. Yeah, because I used to work at Wix too, so I have that in my mind. Of course, that was many years ago, before YouTube is what it is now. I was running Google search there. So someone's asking, Sam Simon, what are the audience minimums for delivering a YouTube video ad? If my page has like 60 visits, is this a possibility with YouTube?
He's looking for remarketing then, not necessarily audience.
Yes.
So remarketing with YouTube, which is regular, in-stream, whatever, you need at least 100 active users every 30 days. So if you're only getting 60 visits, I don't know what that time frame is, but you need to drive more traffic in other ways first. I mean, that's with display too. Regular display and banner ads, you need 100 users, 100 active users every 30 days. So that active is key too. Not, 100 people visited, now I can get all 100 of them. No, they have to be logged into their Google accounts and having some activity. So it's pretty much more than 100 that you need.
Okay. So since we're on the topic of remarketing, like, what are your how do you segment your remarketing list off your YouTube videos? Like, obviously, if only 100 visits, then you can't really segment very much. You just like have to remarket everybody together.
All or nothing.
But, exactly. But let's say you have hundreds of thousands and you're free. What would you do?
I think the first thing it comes down to, especially if you're running on YouTube, is your video content. Like if you've got a plethora of video and you got all different types of videos for this product, that product, a founder video, a review video, all these different things, you can really get very siloed and very segmented in terms of your retargeting specifically for your video. But when it comes to my website, I think Google has done a great job with Google Analytics to bring in very different types of goals. There's a lot of different things that you can create in analytics that you can bring into YouTube. Like, so I want to target someone that's been on my site for at least 4 minutes. Okay. I want to target only SMART goal, users. I want to build a lookalike off of people that have been to 7 pages and stayed for 8 minutes. Those are the type of segments that I build because I want to compare those like unique segments against my typical add to cart, product view, website visitor. And then once I have those like that site retargeting, I want to go ahead and compare that against my video retargeting. people who became an earned view, subscribers, people who like, people who comment, and then people who completed 100% of my video is also very unique. I take all those different types of retargeting audiences, and there could be people that flow across both of them, and then I start to compare the results. Like, what are the results? How are they clicking through? What are the CPCs? What am I being charged to reach these users? And then finding out what's most valuable to execute after that.
Okay, so basically you start with a lot of lists and then you kind of narrow down.
Yeah, and that's all dependent on like how big, right? Like if a client's getting 500,000 users to his website all day, you know, it's going to be a lot of analysis. If we're only getting 1,000 users to our website, we might just be sticking with website visitors, people who stayed longer than 3 minutes, and people who became an earned view. But it really depends on the content you have, as well as the type of volume that you're driving.
Okay, Joe, you were saying something.
Yeah, no, from a retargeting standpoint, I always like to look at what content users have. I have a lot of clients who they have video content, they're not getting new one for a while, so they're kind of stuck a little bit. So like, okay, what is the message in this video, and who would be the right targeting audience for it? Doesn't mean you need to blast it out to everybody. If you do have a generic branding video that can apply to any service or any product that you have, then look at when you're retargeting or remarketing to users, how can you change the ad? Can you switch up the message and the call to action extension to speak differently to each of the audiences that you're retargeting? What's important to them. If you're e-commerce and you're doing TrueView for shopping, you're showing your products on those videos when you're remarketing. It's a generic brand video. Cool. It's the same sale no matter what you're buying. Cool. But then what products are you remarketing to those users who visited your website? So you can still switch up the video ad, even if your retargeting audience or your main bulk audience and your creative is the same. It's just the message that you put in front of the users when you are retargeting them can still be different. You could still ad test that out.
Okay. That's very insightful for me, honestly. And I think it's good for everyone else out there as well. So let's see, what is the next thing I want to continue on? Now, what are the biggest changes that you felt with YouTube in 2019? I remember, I think the first time we talked was shortly after YouTube Premium came out, and I was thinking okay, well, maybe this is going to have some sort of influence because people don't see ads, right? So you're missing out on a segment. Is this a big change for you? And if not, what else is?
I think the biggest change for me on the YouTube platform I've seen in 2019 is non-skippable ads. Non-skippable ads used to be something that we had to reach out to a rep and buy. And a couple of years ago, they were at $40 CPMs, only running in front of premium content. And you weren't getting the necessary reporting back on it. Right. And so now being able to buy in-stream in the platform and get a fair comparison against this 15 non-skippable versus skippable ads, this is where we've seen kind of like, oh, this is very interesting, because now the CPMs are closer to $10. The CPCs are still outrageous, but we got to think about the user experience. They're dealing with this 15-second in between content. We can't expect them to click out unless we've really just, done our job within 15 seconds. So this has been the biggest change for us. And we mostly use this 15-second as a frequency tool. It's a great frequency tool to just add on to what we're doing from a non-skippable standpoint. Because in my opinion, the skippable, the TrueView skippable, you skip an ad, that is more for just like longer form content for us, like really engaging somebody, giving somebody the opportunity to skip and then say, no, I'll stay with this. This engaged me. And then adding on top of that from a retargeting perspective, the non-skippable frequency 15 seconds in between videos to get that, reminder in. Oh, I did see that. Oh, I do need that. Oh, okay. But that to me has been the biggest change, along with the implementation of discovery ads and ad sequencing and a lot of different placements and ad units that they've been adding to YouTube. But I still think that the non-skippable and being able to buy that, I think, is the closest thing to buying TV that we have today.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
I would say Google's push more towards driving action. So January of 19 is when they sunset the overlays, the call to action overlays, where it used to be that little link tiny thing that popped up with a teeny tiny logo. And then they switched to the call to action extensions. So one, I liked it better for ad testing purposes. And even if the user skips the ad, that call to action extension is still visible. So they want to drive more action. Again, yes, that's more clicks for Google, but it's even beneficial for the advertiser too, because they can drive more traffic to their websites. And then now they're, beta testing lead gen forms on YouTube, collecting leads and getting more. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that. Whatever. It's too late now.
Maybe we shouldn't say.
But it's way that you can just drive more traffic and get conversions straight from your YouTube videos, and they don't have to ever leave the platform. So I think that's going to be the biggest push. And there's lead gen forms on every channel already. So why not YouTube?
Right.
And one more, I think, big advancement this year that I am so thankful for, that I think is going to be so impactful for those in creative specifically, is that if you go into the video area inside of Google Ads and you click on a video, the analytics has improved, I think, by 1,000%. Because before you could only see how long somebody was watching my video. Oh, wow, 50% of people made it to, the end of my video or something like that. Now you're able to segment how long somebody stayed through the video by platform. So you can see how long they stayed on TV, how long they stayed on their mobile device, how long they stayed on desktop, but also by age as well as gender. So I know that my older audience stays all the way through this video, but my younger audience can't get through it. What's the problem, right? And so it develops this conversation and consumer research that ultimately I think advances your brand, that you don't see in the cost that you make and the impressions and the clicks. It's consumer research that I think that drives the better performance in the following weeks and the following months. And that's a huge change that I don't think any other platform has.
Yeah, with the YouTube analytics too, you get really good device data as well. If you're doing a ton of content marketing and you're pushing out a lot of videos, you get traffic source data. So you can see if your YouTube videos are embedded on other websites or anything. You get that data of how users are engaging in it and where your views and stuff are coming from. And that could be another option you to realize, oh man, this specific website's showing my video, it's getting great engagement, ton of views and everything. Maybe I should use that as a managed placement too, because that wasn't showing up in my typical Google stats. So that YouTube Studio stuff, it's been fantastic.
So I have a Sarah Romano is asking, any hacks for figuring out what placements are about? Well, known placements are obvious, but what about these random name channels, NFL channel versus Sarah Romano's channel? I guess you have a channel.
Let me find that question so I could look at it.
It's in the. It's put inside it.
This is a.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is a tough one. It's a tough one for me because when you look at channels that don't make sense, that are converting for you, or people are staying long in terms of their view rate, it's hard to understand it, because you're like, why would somebody on an NFL channel, right, if I'm selling maybe cooking or I'm trying to reach a 25 to 34 female demographic, why are people watching my video on this NFL channel? Well, Google is saying that we found the intent there. There was intent signals, and they watched this video, even though it might not be what you what you might want to put your video in front of, but it's working. Right. And so I think we have to give Google a clap and just say, hey, man, we thank you for having all the data and being able to find the right user. But this is where it comes to analyzing your data. If you go ahead and pull that placement report and see those odd channels versus those channels that you picked that you wanted to run in front of, compare those things and say, okay, are these channels that I'm paying a premium for because I've created this small placement group with the stuff that I think is going to work, is that converting, or people clicking through, or are those rates better than what I'm getting going custom intent? And I know it's probably harder to see if you're running B2B and your conversions might be hidden and you might not have a $15 product that just flies off the shelf, right? And so it could be a little bit difficult, but when that happens, I encourage you to look at more top line metrics: CPM, cost per view, CPC, your view rate, your click-through rate, engagement rate, maybe earned view rate, right? Do people go and watch another video on your channel more often on these, weird channels than potentially the channels that you want to run on? That could be a clear indicator, but I think it's really comes down to analysis.
Yeah, and we can segment our campaigns by campaign. Set up our conversions. By campaign. So
that's nice. I can't. That was well overdue.
So look at that from. This is going to be all different depending on your industry and your goals and everything. But if you have a long sales cycle, like Cory mentioned, if you are more B2B, maybe you don't need to have that, RFQ as the main goal of success for that YouTube campaign. If it's a 90 to, we've worked with clients up to a year sales cycle. you can't expect an RFQ from your YouTube videos top of funnel if you have a year-long sales cycle. But I can now change what I consider a conversion just for my YouTube videos, and now we can actually embrace what we used to laugh at as those micro conversions. You know, when Google announced those, we're like, oh man, it was so stupid. Now we're doing it. It was like, oh, I get it, because what is that point of success from a long sales cycle video campaign? It's that engagement. That is what I consider a conversion for that long sales cycle one, not the RFQ. My goal is to get that user in the funnel and use my other channels. I don't care if it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Quora, however you're doing your remarketing, have them convert it later on. I'm using this to find the right user and get that attention, especially from an in-stream mode where their intent was not to watch my video. I'm just getting in front of them, and all I'm asking is for their attention. And that is what I'm going to consider a conversion from that stage of the funnel. Again, that's just one example from long sale or long cycle B2B stuff, but look at it from what you deem as success. You know, another thing we look at is what Cory mentioned before, run your audiences and view your placement reports. We see a lot of conversions from like the Weather Channel or CNN or everything. You know, if you're in a very specific niche industry, you're probably not going to target Weather Channel or CNN. You always have that mentality of I'm going to stick to what is relevant to just my industry. But everyone checks the weather. A lot of different types of people check the news.
You've heard the Weather Channel or CNN, that's right.
Yeah, so that's why when you look at audience one, it's not necessarily the placement. I'm targeting the user, not necessarily where I think they're going to go. I want the right user.
So you're pretty much when you're looking through placements, you're primarily looking at the metrics.
Yep. Yeah,
like
To me,
although if you're advertising, although if you're targeting with your advertising website builder or something like that, and you happen to be, and you find that you're on those review sites or people speaking about things like WordPress and how to make stuff, then at least that's good, right? But it's and I guess maybe if you see something objectionable, you don't want to be in that placement. That's other reasons to exclude.
Yeah.
Right. So what about testing ads? We haven't spoken about that at all. What is your strategy behind, let's say, if you're testing something?
This question comes up a lot on how to test, like on YouTube. The number one rule that I will tell absolutely anybody, variation. Make sure that you don't just run one video. Please run multiple videos. Even if they're the same length, make them different. And I encourage you to make the beginning different. If you make the end different, not as many people make it to the end of your video than start your video. So it's harder to learn about variation at the end of your video and much easier to learn about variation in the beginning of your video. But if you can create multiple links, potentially have multiple actors, potentially create two different types of video, maybe a funny video and a normal video, this is where you learn about your audience and what potentially video you want to create in the future. Now, if the budget's not there, well, open up your camera and do a face to camera and just talk to people. That can always work. We've seen it happen.
Yeah. From a discovery standpoint, you have the option. I mean, what the main part that the user sees is going to be the headline, the description, if it's desktop only, and then the custom thumbnail. So those are the elements that you pretty much can only test out, because then it's all going to go to the video watch page and you can't really segment out those different videos. So if you want to do discovery and you want the higher intent, you want to make sure people are definitely seeing it, test out a variety of different thumbnails and different headlines. What's going to capture that user's attention that gets higher click-through rates on that discovery ad?
That's true. That's very good, very insightful. See, I have like so many that I have to go through that I missed. Now, do national business and capital and services, do you use custom coded bidding strategies using Google Ads scripts?
No, we don't use any scripts when it comes to YouTube. Our bidding, I think, strategy is to really try to, first of all, get delivery. Can I start to see some delivery at this specific cost per view? And then once I get the delivery that I want, I begin to start to lower my cost per view until I stop to get delivery. And then I know where I'm at in terms of the bid that Google wants me to be. And so that's how we start to, that's how we bid optimize. But again, this is across a variety of placements, a variety of audiences, a variety of different types of videos. But I'm always trying to figure out how to increase the view rate, because in my opinion, that has been what I've seen as the highest impact in terms of driving a lower cost per view, better CPMs, is just, can you get your view rate up to 50%? 55%, potentially 60%, because that's when Google starts to say, hey man, this is a great video. A lot of people staying past 30. Here's a bonus.
And it's tough. Like the metrics you look in Google Ads, it's going to show you pretty much everything. And sometimes like the CPVs and everything are insanely cheap. But you have to consider many of those views, you aren't paying for. It's showing you your total cost, your total views and everything. So I'll be honest, that's why I've never used scripts with it, because I have no idea how they factor into all the free views and everything that you get, and would it optimize toward any potential false numbers.
Yeah, that's like something more like if you're running like, very complicated search campaigns or GDN campaigns, and instead of just staying on top, it makes it easier to just stay on top of it all the time, I would think. Now they also have another question, same viewer, National Business Capital and Service. How would you suggest to structure a new video campaign from start and through the campaign? Do you set a wide net of topics, keywords, etc., and then optimize for the best performance targeting?
That might kind of go back to the funnel structure that we already talked about. Yeah, I think how we do it from bottom of the funnel, middle of the funnel, top of the funnel, and keep it as specific as possible. And then as users are going down the funnel, just making sure that you're excluding, you make sure that your remarketing audiences in the bottom of the funnel are excluded from your mid funnel audiences, and make sure that your mid and remarketing bottom of the funnel audiences are excluded from your top of funnel, just to try to keep those audiences as segmented as possible. But yeah, I think that's some of the stuff that we mentioned, unless you have anything different to add, Cory.
I think, I'd probably mention the whole, budget situations, right? If you have a smaller budget, be very meticulous with your choices on audience. Don't just open up a large custom intent and spend everything in one day. Like, be super meticulous and strategize if you're going to create a YouTube campaign. Don't just throw something up there, because it's not going to be good. You're not going to be able to analyze it the right way. Take your time if you have a small budget, and really create like a placement list, target the right keywords, and learn from more of like a mid to low funnel perspective. But I think if you have the big budgets, one recommendation that I would say is to stick to the funnel strategy as we talked about, but also, look at those first 2 weeks as a great learning time. You don't need to spend all that budget in 2 weeks. Spend the first 2 weeks just analyzing the data, finding out what audiences work the best, then spend the bulk of that budget against what you learned, maybe with 10% of it, 15% of it. That would probably be a really good strategy for somebody on the higher end and then somebody else on the lower end.
That's a really good point. Yeah, the specificity of some of the targeting, like the default options, go to the Google or the YouTube, whatever support pages on the targeting of these things, and really read everything in the fine print. Because a lot of times Google's not lying to you. They say not custom, just regular affinity audiences. Google flat out says they are very broad, and they're like TV-like demographic audiences. So if you don't have what I always say, a Coca-Cola budget, and you don't want to spread it out to a wide thing, then don't use affinity audiences as well. They're not trying to pull one over you. It flat out says it in the description on the Google support pages. So just read like how these audiences or these targeting options can actually work. If you said, like what Cory says, if you have a small budget, I'd stick with remarketing and your custom intent. Anything with basic topics, basic keywords, and based on affinity audiences, to me, they are always way too broad, and you need way more time to let those run and test, and so you can start excluding out those options before you actually see some of those broader ones work, unless you have, again, way bigger budgets.
Okay. I have a question from Kyle. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm trying to make discovery ads using only specific keywords with no success. I would like to know what aspects of video affects discovery campaign, such as duration, likes, comments, quality, and so on.
So he said, sorry, I kind of got mumbled up. It was.
Oh, that was okay. I'm trying to make discovery ads.
Oh wait, I see it. There we go.
Yeah.
It's a tough question, because it's asking about what aspects of the video affect discovery campaigns, and a lot of that is hidden within Google's algorithm in terms of what they want to promote and what costs they're going to give advertisers to put those placements out there. And so what I can say is to just upload multiple videos and then see, right? Like if you have multiple videos, you can start to see what the costs are coming in at, what gets promoted, what doesn't get promoted. I think one of the big things that I learned about Google recently is that they're not in the client's favor. They're not looking out for your best interest, because if I run a minute 40, a 60, a 30, and a 15, and my minute 40 does the best across all metrics, Google's still going to push my 30 and my 60. And it's just like, why? Like, you see the better performance on the longer form. Oh, they're doing the best thing for their platform and their users. Makes sense. Okay, so I need to go ahead and break this out, or go ahead and pause this so I get my long form to run correctly. And I think it's very similar here. Like, I would definitely test multiple discovery campaigns across multiple videos to see, okay, which one is giving me the most value, which one is Google pushing the most, and how can I really find the best one for my advertiser.
And then from a setting standpoint, by default, when you create a discovery campaign, it's going to be your discovery ads going to be eligible to show from both the YouTube search results and then also from contextually as recommended videos. So you can uncheck the recommended videos box and have your videos just show on search results. So users typing in queries for the most part. So that is where I've tested out some of the keyword targeting options first, is just focus just on YouTube search. Try to get those higher intent type ones. And then I don't know what you're targeting or what your video is. Make sure with those keywords that you're targeting, again, it doesn't work the same way as regular search network does. It's still contextually based. It's not exact match of what the keywords that you're targeting. So you have to keep that in mind too. Look at what other search queries could potentially relate to the ones that you're targeting, but it also make sure if someone's typing in something and they want a specific answer to a video, that video better be very specific to the keywords that you're going after too. If there's any sort of unrelated aspect to it, or it seems a little bit too broad, the video's too generic to the keywords that you're targeting, then to me, it might not be a surprise why it's not working.
Okay. It's very, very good stuff. So I want to ask one last question, and then I was thinking for the last few minutes, any best practices you could think of? Let's just blurt them out, because I have some ideas, So we'll do that and then finish the other way. I'm also getting, it's another question from Cal Philippe. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm creating discovery ads for a channel that has not been updated for a long time. Can this affect the reach of the discovery ads campaign?
The channel hasn't been updated in a while. I mean, you're still targeting a specific video to an audience. So to me, it's going to be the audience that you're targeting. Now, once they watch the video and they check out your channel, it might affect the engagement afterwards, or they see like, oh, this is a video from an old channel. Oh, this company may not be around anymore, but like, it's not going to affect the reach.
I think the question is more like if your channel doesn't have much activity, does it affect your PPC?
More for the long-term engagement, but not the actual audience that you're initially targeting. If you're targeting that audience, they're still going to see it.
Okay. Yeah, but I just always tend to think like I wouldn't put it past Google to look at landing page experience, even on their own platform, so it's just like, we're never going to know for sure. But I think always being buttoned up in all areas is great before you start spending media.
Well, there's got to be some things that are considered binary. They're like landing pages, it's either fast enough or not. Is my understanding. It's like it's not like other elements that are on a spectrum, or like page load time is either faster or not. So there could be things there. Now, best practices. I'm thinking about something like, I do this. I think you guys probably do too, but I want to hear it, and I think it's good for the audience. Exclude your visitors or your viewers from your campaigns and just manage them off of remarketing.
Yes, we do this with our top and our mid funnel. We definitely want to exclude any of our website visitors, regardless of what they do. And so our website visitors, our low funnel, is removed from our mid funnel and our top funnel all the time on everything that we do, because we do want to silo that low funnel and give them the unique experience that they deserve because they engaged at a high level.
Yeah, and even if you're not targeting your customers, you can still utilize customer lists as any possible exclusions if it makes sense.
Yeah. What is something else you could think of that someone just shouldn't do or should do?
I think the biggest best practice I can give is just variation test your video. I've said it a few times, but the big ability that is not seen on YouTube is the consumer research you get back by seeing how long somebody stays with your video, when they drop off, and what version they potentially like, this version versus that version. So I think version testing is like my biggest best practice that I can give. Please do not build one video and then run it and say YouTube doesn't work, right? At least run 2 videos and say, oh, wow, this video did better than that one. Here's the reasons why.
Yeah, I mean, not to cut you off, Cory, the stuff I use in presentations is like, look, you as think of yourself. Do you hate seeing like the same TV commercial 3 times in like a day? So then why the hell would you run the same YouTube ad for like 6 months straight? And it's like you're most likely doing more harm than good, because everyone's seeing. I can name specific companies that don't use frequency capping, but I won't. But you've seen it on YouTube when you're on there, the same ad over and over again. Like, don't do that. If you hate it when it happens to you, why are you doing it to your customers?
Monday.com.
That was one. That was one.
And I know them. I know them. They're an offshoot of Wix.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, Wix was another one I was thinking of too. They just burn it to the ground.
Well, that
Grammarly.
Budget, it's like
And those were the three right there. Y'all named them.
They are the reason I have YouTube Premium. 100%.
And both Israeli.
Yeah. There is frequency capping, so you can cut it off after a certain amount of impressions. But one of the things I would do is, you can create audiences and layer them onto your search campaigns. Look at your trends. Besides the initial video view, and we already talked about next marketing campaigns, do the research and actually see how YouTube impacts your other channels. If you're creating audiences that you were originally driven from those YouTube campaigns, use UTM parameters. Then you could potentially use, if I drove X amount of traffic from my YouTube channel into my call to action extensions, that was tagged with the specific parameter, then I can use that for remarketing on Facebook or anything else as well. So there is an option to use YouTube in deeper levels of the funnels and look at the value that it actually has beyond just the initial video view. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, I would also recommend to look at the halo effect if you have the opportunity. Sort of to what Joe was mentioning, is that when somebody watches your ad on YouTube, we are seeing so many more people see this on TV, on a desktop, on mobile, in a variety of different environments, but more moving towards TV. And when you're on TV and you see an ad, like, what is your first move? Oh, I'm going to go search for it. Now, how is that tracked? It's just impossible. Like, the attribution for that is very, very, very difficult. But if you have enough volume and you put enough YouTube either into a specific geo or serve the right video to make somebody search for the right key term, you could see that within your Google Trends. You could see that with an increase in your brand terms. You could see that volume in terms of your direct or organic traffic beginning to increase inside of your Google Analytics. So always look at the halo effect. But again, to really drive that halo effect, you do need a budget. And if you're gonna really try to see the conversions from it, I would recommend siloing it to a specific geo, and either trying to improve an already great geo or trying to improve a geo that's struggling a bit to see if you can potentially move the needle. We've done that with a few advertisers that really shows the value of YouTube, not necessarily what comes through Google Ads, but the entire halo effect from the platform.
Well said.
It's like doing radio or TV advertising. I mean, it's like sometimes, like, I'm dealing with a client and they'll be like, okay, yeah, sure, you can advertise on this radio station or get on these podcasts, and that's the same answer. So that's what TV does. It takes away control.
Yeah, YouTube is a search network in a way. It is a search engine, but it is not Google search. So you gotta separate these two completely. Two different animals, two different channels.
That's right. It's gonna be much harder. You have to, like, attribution is more. There's more guesswork involved. People aren't just clicking and buying, especially with TV, like you mentioned before. So this has been a lot of fun, and I would like to do it again. I mean, we can go on and on and on. I mean, and every time it keeps getting more interesting. Hope next time Brian joins us as well.
We'll do part 4.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll do part 4. Yes. Oh, this is a good one. Of what children videos? I can't believe we haven't brought that up. I'm sorry.
Oh, here, hold on. I'll pay.
Yeah, no. Thank you, Tanner. Like, we were just about to sign off, but this is something I really hate. Kids using their parents' phones and stuff, clicking on stuff. Like, do you just exclude all children channels?
Tanner, I just right now there isn't a category exclusion to exclude all children's channels, but I just responded to your comment and pasted the list that I made. I haven't updated in a while. It's about 1,400 channels to exclude. It looks like it's up to 1,500, but almost 100 of them have been removed from YouTube for noticeably being junk. Okay. But you can add this as a placement exclusion within your Google Ads, or you can add it at an account level and it'll apply to all campaigns.
Okay, so I'm going to tweak that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's instructions on how to set it up, plus the list itself is in that link.
Okay. Well, it's really so. Okay. And by the way, I'll be on Twitter as well if you guys want to interact. My Twitter handle, so I'll put it in the chat here. I think you guys could do it too.
Alrighty.
And yeah, so it's really been a pleasure. Stay tuned. We're going to do this again. And again, like, thank you for joining, and let's keep the conversation going.
All right.
It's been a pleasure for all of us.
Hopefully we'll see you in part 4.
Yeah. I'll be here for part 4. Believe me.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.